Check, mic check, 1, 2.
Yo, is this thing on or what?
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Platform Podcast. As always, I am your host, Dex. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to go hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, give us a like, give us a follow, and let us know in the comments who you want to see on upcoming shows, and of course, how you're liking the show. Before we get started, we got to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Make It Now Media. They just gave me all new stuff for 2025, did a full rebrand of the platform. So new graphics, new show art for everything. They've done my logo, they've done my EPK, bunch of stuff. So whether you're a DJ, a creative, an agency, a venue that's looking for flyer work, hit up Make It Now Media, mention the platform, they'll get you all hooked up and ready to go. Now today, sitting down on the couch, I've got a new friend of mine. He's been coming in and out of Nashville frequently, just racking up the air miles, in and out of Barstool, in and out of all the Groot hospitality spots like Live and the hottest spots in Miami. He is the man behind the camera, the man behind all the reels that you see up on Barstool. We're sitting down with Gonzo. How's it going, man?
Great, man. What an intro. Thank you. I'm honored.
Got to hype you up, man.
Yeah.
You've been in and out of here. We've got to know each other pretty well over, the last month or two that you've been coming out here?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Been having a good time in Nashville?
It's a great time, dude.
Yeah.
It's different. I mean, last time I came here was for a college formal, so I can't say I remember much of it. But now that I've gotten to remember my time in Nashville, it's been great.
Yeah. So you started with Barstool now. What has it been? 2 months?
Barstool, we're probably more closer to like 3-4 months, maybe. Yeah.
But it's been a while. We're gonna get into a lot of things. A little bit different than a lot of the other guests that I have on the show. Usually they're music related. I like to get the people in the creative side as well, just to see a different side of the nightlife industry and the music industry, things that you can go into different fields. And this is one that I'm always passionate about, obviously with the creativity that it takes to run a podcast, and then just seeing you constantly running around throughout a night when it's busy as fuck and you're trying to get that shot of whatever it's going to be is fun to talk about. So We got a lot lined up of what we're going to go through, just starting with you starting your own company. You have EMRGENT with a couple other guys that you're very close friends with, that you co-founded, just building that team around you, expanding your portfolio to be able to work with bigger name artists and bigger brands, and then just kind of your creative direction and how you go about getting the shots and getting all the content that you want. So before we get into all that, let the viewers know a little bit about you, where you're from, and how you got into this.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
So Luna's always in the show, so she's making an appearance. Got to say hi. So
Luna's my favorite. Yeah, sorry. She outdoes you by like a lot, but it's still.
Hey, she's the star of the show. She knows it too. So come here, babe.
So my name is Gonzo Londoño. I'm from Miami, Florida. My family's from Colombia, so they're all from the same part of Colombia, Cali. They're all out there right now, actually. So they were celebrating the New Year out there. But in terms of media, how I got into it was actually kind of by accident. How it all started originally was I went to a high school, shout out Christopher Columbus High School out in Miami, Florida. But my passion has always been acting. I've always loved performing, whether it was stage or film. And I'll never forget, some kid had told me that there was no acting program at my high school, which turned out not to be true. It was just some guy
made it up.
Yeah, he was just like, fuck this kid. And then he threw me for a loop. And I remember I joined the journalism program because I was like, all right, man, this is like the second closest thing. Like I'll do it. And then I heard over the announcements that they were having auditions, and I was like, okay. So I was going to leave the journalism program, and my journalism teacher at the time, who his name's Omar Delgado, who's still a big part of my life, and I owe him a lot, honestly. He pretty much told me, like, don't leave. There's a place for you here. And ever since then, I got really into being in front of the camera, news anchoring, journalism style sort of filming. And it wasn't until after I graduated, I started getting more into more of the camera work behind the camera and figuring that stuff out. And now, about 10 years later, here we are. You know?
Yeah. So you're not nervous at all right now to be recording a podcast.
I'm pretty amped. I'm pretty amped right now. It's been a while since I've been in front of the camera, so it's exciting, but it's familiar.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you on, man. Thank you for sitting down. Obviously, just talking about how you get started. That's kind of crazy that this kid just kind of tried to bamboozle you. He saw some talent. He was like, fuck that. I can't let him know that we have an acting program. He's like, no, he's going to take my spot. So, but yeah, I mean, like you said, 10 years later, now you have your own company. You started EMRGENT, co-founded it. Tell me a little bit about EMRGENT, what you guys do, because I feel like for me and probably a lot of other people, you see people doing the photography and the videography at bars and nightclubs and festivals and things like that. And you don't really know how much work is put in both in preparation for it, but then after you guys get all that footage. And it's crazy to me how quick you can go through and edit shit and get it up and looking as good as it does for what you see on Instagram and everything else as far as our socials go, from the recaps and sizzle reels and shit like that. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about EMRGENT, the team that you have with you, and how you guys got started with that.
Yeah, so EMRGENT, we are 3 business partners. My other 2 business partners, I know you've met one of them, which is Alex Mari.
Yeah.
And then the other one that you haven't met just yet. Are you going to be at Waste Management, by the way?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you'll probably meet.
Pumped.
I'm pumped too. Yeah, but you'll probably meet Matthew Liedman out there.
Okay.
He's our 3rd guy. And we actually started because Matthew Liedman and I were at the same fraternity at FSU. And he already had a media company out there that was doing really well. He had a pretty big control of a lot of the nightlife that was at FSU. I mean, obviously it's nowhere compared to Nashville or Miami or anything like that. But for a college kid, it was extremely impressive, you know?
Yeah.
And I had actually worked for him, another media company that was out there as well. And dude, I sucked. Like I was so bad. And he had actually asked me to do an edit for him for a club, like a little recap. And it was so good he never talked to me again, you know? So it was one of those where he completely never reached out. And my specialty was very much journalism, storytelling, narrative work, basically.
Yeah.
So it wasn't my forte. And then one day he got a project for an FSU football player that needed kind of a documentary style. He was doing like hurricane relief and like some charity work, and it was very empowering stuff. And Matt needed someone to edit it, so he reached out to me, and I did a project for him. But during that time, we weren't speaking. I was still working on the craft, and I was still, majoring in it, and I was still doing it for work on the side. And I was just independently being hired by other places, and it kind of clicked for me one day. And when he had me do that project for him and that went well, he had me do a club recap for him. And finally I showed my worth a little bit, So he started hitting me up for more work. And I just didn't like how he was running the business. I wasn't a big fan. I mean, again, he was a college kid. He was balancing so much. It was hard for him to, think of things on a broader scale at the time. Yeah. But he was still doing great with what he had. Finally, I told him, I was like, hey, man, like, I really don't want to keep working together. I don't like how X, Y, and Z is ran. I don't like this, and that. He's like, no, man, I totally agree. Like, let's partner up. And that was like crazy to me, Yeah. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And he was moving back to South Florida. I'm from South Florida. So it was one of those moves that just kind of made sense to be able to be like, hey, like I always felt like have a bit of leadership qualities to me. And I think that was the opportunity to do that. And leading into that, there's spring break was coming up, and Alex got hired by a company to go shoot. And that's where Matt and Alex met. And at that point, it really wasn't my call because it was still Matt's company, and he wanted to bring Alex on. And honestly, I didn't really like Alex when I first met him. And I've told him too. So if Alex is watching this, he knows that I wasn't his biggest fan at first. But we got to talking, and it made sense. Alex is extremely talented.
Yeah.
Matt's a business mind, but he's also, really pretty good at shooting, and he's gotten a lot better as time has gone on. And, we're still finding our places. I mean, the company has really only been a company for about a year and a half now. So, like anything else, there's our growing pains, but we're making it work.
I feel like that's kind of got to be the good part about it is like all 3 are very different. Right. Where then like you can fill in the needs that he might be lacking, and then kind of vice versa too, where it's probably very, very good that you were like, hey, I don't like how you're doing this because I would be doing X, Y, Z. And then he's like, cool, let's change these things and make it better. And now you guys have the company going. It's the 3 of you, but then you have a whole team around you. And now to this point, I mean, you guys are kind of in and out of Nashville all the time. You're in Miami. You're going over to Dallas and places in Texas too, where I feel like a lot of times you guys are being booked out to shoot for multiple clients in multiple cities on the same night.
Yeah, man.
So how important is it for you to build that team and get people on that team that you can trust to get the right shots, get the right edits, get the right photos, all that kind of stuff when you might be in a different city too.
I mean, not only is it important, I'd argue it's our bloodline, you know, like the creative world is really difficult. And I think that I've noticed that in a lot of the creatives that we hire is that so many people want to gatekeep. And I don't know if it's maybe very similar in the music industry,
It's
but
very similar. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like the creative world is like that, you know, everybody wants to like stay on top and whatnot. But I think for the way that Emergent is set up, we work with a lot of independent contractors. So we work with people from all over. We've worked with people from the UK. We've worked with people. We have a very talented team out in Brazil who edits a lot of videos for us that we're very grateful for. You know, I'm going to shout out a lot of people throughout this.
I was like, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We have Isa, Joao, Lucas. They're all incredible people who, frankly, without all these creatives, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing now. Yeah. But to your point, it's extremely important to find those people. But as much as you want to invest in those like absolute killers that are just very talented, and of course those are going to be very important, I think it's more important to find those people that are teachable, that are willing to like, you know, stay along for the ride and that are willing to learn, because at the end of the day, that's going to be much more important. You want people that are easy to work with, you know, because even if you're extremely talented, which we've had many stories actually of people that are extremely talented, but then we send them off to venues and then they were a pain in the ass, or they had an attitude, or we've had some. I have a pretty bad horror story too that I could get into, but it's super talented kid and we got fucked over pretty bad. So you got to be careful, you know, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, from what you guys have done in a short year, I guess, how have you been able to kind of build your portfolio and who you've been working with, and kind of making a bigger name for not only yourself as a creative, but then for Emergent and the whole company too?
It's a great question. A big part of it that really kickstarted us off, which I'd be wrong in not mentioning, is Matt is a very well-connected person, and he had a large network already, you know. And then I know we're going to talk about Caroline at some point, and she's a big part as to why we are here.
Excited for the shout out.
Oh yeah, I know she is. She's mad she wasn't on here first, but you know, I'm sure you'll get her on. But yeah, Matt was very well connected when we first started. But I think it really boils down to what I've been referring to as social currency. You know, like I think it's very important to, like, obviously you want to survive off of your art and you want to be able to, you know, live and support your family, yourself, and all that other stuff. But I think that the time that we're in now with like social media and whatnot, like one of our biggest clients is Royal Caribbean, for example. Yeah. That's huge for us, you know, but at the end of the day, as excited as we are, because we know what it means for us to post this like big ship, you know, people are going to want to post this video of Travis Scott, Lil Wayne, whatever, before they're like, nice big ship. You know what I'm saying? Not as many people care. So a lot of what we have been able to obtain in terms of clients and opportunities has been as a result of the clientele that we've worked with in terms of like the artists and some of the big names, which has given us that social credibility that gives us validity and credibility in sort of the world that we're working in right now.
Yeah, especially like in the nightlife industry. I mean, yeah, you post a recap video of you that you did for Travis Scott, or I think of like recently, obviously in Miami, you just did Art Basel, and the shit that you guys put out after Art Basel was fucking awesome.
Thank you, man.
But then you see like the creative ideas that you guys have of having everyone do the signatures and putting the clear glass like over the camera that everybody can sign, and it makes it look like they're just like signing the camera. But you're working with people like a John Summit, a DJ Khaled, a Lil Wayne, a Diplo, and then you're putting that out on your resume to build your portfolio where you're like, hey, these are all artists that we've shot for that are some of the biggest artists in the entire world. Yeah. And then, like you said, it just gives you that credibility and that validity where then when other clients reach out to you and they're like, oh, what have you done? Who have you worked with? Well, here's your answer and here's the content that comes from it. And I feel like once they see it, it speaks for itself. And I'm sure people will be able to check out your socials. I'll have everything linked. They can go through and just scroll through all the Emergent social and clips and content that they put out and go into a little hole.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, but it's good, man. So from all those people that you've worked with, I mean, like talk about Art Basel and just the planning and preparation that you guys had prior, just knowing that you're going to shoot all of these artists. What goes into it? Like, what are you guys having in meetings and creatively? How are you figuring out how to shoot this? And how are they different for each artist too? Because do you find that you're shooting differently stylistically for like an EDM artist versus like a hip hop artist?
Yeah. So funny enough, when I first got into this sort of world of filming, full time, and this being my career, I honestly really don't know a lot about DJs. Sorry.
I figured like you're just always around it, so I feel like you would kind of be picking up on it. But I also know from when I used to like bartend and stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, when I was working, my buddies would DJ and they'd be like, "Oh, like, did you like my set?" And I'm like, I couldn't tell you a single song that you played. Like, I just would not be paying attention at all.
Right.
And I feel like for you, you're same kind of thing where you're just kind of running around where like, do you even really listen that much or not really?
So I'm starting to.
Yeah.
Like I know more about DJs now, but I meant like at the dawn of the company. Like when we first started, I would have to ask like when we were going to do certain shoots, like, yo, is this guy big? Like, is this a big deal?
Yeah.
And then Alex and Matt would be like really excited, and I'd be like, okay, cool. So this is cool. You know? But I didn't know. My whole thing is like my family's Colombian, and so I grew up on a lot of Spanish music, salsa music, and then hip hop was like my biggest thing, So, when there's just like an event you're excited for, I'm sure it's happened to you when you're DJing. You probably maybe DJ a little bit different. Maybe you got a little more swag to it. Maybe just a little bit more energy. But definitely, I feel like that's where it comes from for me. Like now, I can appreciate better DJs and the energy, because for me, it feeds off on the videos that I do. Like a DJ that isn't willing to work with me or like give attention to the camera, that's fine, because obviously you're there to do your job. I'm not like your main focus, but you can tell the difference between those people who have that ability to interact with the camera, because it also reflects in their what's up. It also it goes to show their ability to also work with an audience. And at the end of the day, all DJs are performers, So to be able to captivate an audience as well as a camera it's always gonna reflect, and it's only gonna make you look better at the end of the day,
Yeah.
So when I have a hip hop artist and I'm excited about that, like I do get into it a little bit differently, but it's also because the highlights are different. Like maybe they squat down, they're rapping, they're doing whatever. Some of those moments are just not going to exist with the DJ if they're just doing
Standing
their thing
behind a deck. Yeah,
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah, damn. I feel like I might be one of those people that's not that good at it. I always feel like I'm a fucking idiot on camera. Like,
No, man, not at all. I've shot you multiple times.
Yeah, you guys go to
good.
shoot me, and I'm like, the fuck do I do with my hands? I feel like Will Ferrell in Talladega Nights or some shit. Like I'm just like, what do I do? So,
Nah, you're
but then I
killing
look at some highlight reels, and I'm like, damn, like that DJ just looks cool. It looks good. Like
Yeah, you guys, you do your thing. You do your.
Yeah.
It's an energy. Like you don't have to necessarily feed into the camera, but as long as you have that energy to you doing what you do, then it'll read.
Creatively, like what goes into it behind the scenes when you're doing something as big as like an Art Basel?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's hard with any venue. Like when you shoot a venue so many times and so many different nights, I feel like there's only so many ways for you to really display what you've already seen over and over again. So going into an Art Basel, you start really considering, what can I do different? Like, what can I really push the envelope with here? And because sometimes with Groot and different clients, some of them want recaps, some of them don't. So sometimes we don't get that freedom. So Groot, when they have their major events, that's when we get to do the recaps for them, and that's where we get to really shine. So like something for Art Basel, I knew I wanted something to be artistic. I mean, that's low-hanging fruit, but obviously that's the nature of what's going on. So how do we accomplish that? So we started thinking maybe we could do like a canvas in the middle of like Miami Beach or Brickell, where maybe we can get like people interacting with it. For me, I always think about when we're scrolling on social media, people need to recognize whether you're a DJ, whether you're a content creator, a videographer, whatever art you might do, whatever you might be discussing. You got to understand that on social media, no one gives a fuck. And frankly, you got to think about how you scroll on social media. When you're doom scrolling, you're waiting for something to grab your attention, because we are so narcissistic on social media. We're thinking, why do you deserve my attention? So that's like, all right, so how do I do that? Like, how do I fight against all these like flashy things? And then I'm not an IG baddie. Like I don't have the nature of like having voluptuous chest or like a big ass, to like really capture your attention. So it's like, why should you care? And the answer is you probably shouldn't, So it's like, how do I fight that? So something, for example, like what you mentioned about the signing of the lens, that's not something I ever claimed, which I want to make very clear. I've never claimed that was my original idea to have someone sign a lens for the first time. That's been a thing for years. Tennis players were doing it. Athletes were doing it. I just hadn't seen anyone do it with artists. So that was, for me, I was like, oh, that's a really cool opportunity to do something like that. But to be in the face of the artist, like, I don't think we get enough, at least in recaps, moments where you get to humanize the DJ, the artist, whatever it may be, because they're just so untouchable, and especially in live, it's such like a facey place and all this other stuff. So that was kind of where I was at. It's like, what can we do where we can include the artist, but we could also have this moment of like, that it feels genuine to a degree, where it's their own touch, their own respective thing. And that's kind of where that idea was born. And it wouldn't have been possible without, Caroline also fending for that. So again, I know we mentioned we're going to talk about Caroline, but Caroline does the social media at Live, and she's an absolute rock star, and she has quite the resume, but she loved the idea, and we had talked about it. I guess she had pitched it months ago, so we go back and forth on whose idea that was, but I never heard of it from her. But point is that so that was where it kind of comes into that, is like, what can we do that either hasn't already been done too much, or how do we utilize the things that we already know to accomplish something different?
So what do you look at from like projects that you're working on for like Barstool or other venues? Like, how are you going about like planning and prepping for a night, like you said, to just keep it different from every other venue that might be doing recap videos? And is there research that you're doing, looking at other venues and seeing what they're doing and trying to figure out like what's working for people to engage with on social media right now? Yeah,
I think that nightlife recaps are a lot of them have become very standard. Of course, the venue's main focus is they want to sell the venue. So as much as the artists are important, they want to show, hey, this is the space, this is what we can hold. Look how much fun these people are having. Come to our venue. And also, we had Afrojack. You know what I'm saying? Like, those things are very important. But I think for me, it's like, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not doing anything crazy, but there's a lot of things that go into videography, and things that make a video, what people don't necessarily appreciate. So what I see of a lot of the people that we work with, for example, it's like, yeah, you want to have clean video, you want to have solid edits, but like, what else makes a video? The sound design, some of those visual effects, the colors. So what I try to do is I try to look at some of the things that have already been created, and like, how do we put our own twist to it? So like 1,000,001 people have done empty club to full venue, but how can we switch it up? So what does the venue offer me? So for example, something that we're working on, which we haven't done yet, so I guess free game if anybody gets to it before us. But like, for example, if we get spotlights and all the lights are coming in, if there's a way that maybe I can get that spotlight to come down and spread, maybe I can use that as a mask to like show the empty club, and then as the light spreads, it's like revealing all the people, things like that. Or even like with movies or videos that I see online, I figure out, how can I apply that to nightlife? Because we believe that the nightlife recap has to be one thing. And frankly, we don't only do nightlife stuff. That is like kind of our niche and our forte, and that's just kind of like what has taken off for us. But we don't view ourselves as just a nightlife company, and specifically for 2025, we want to kind of stray away from that. But we're just always looking at what is been done, sure, but if there's a way that we can make it different, because frankly, to the point of like, we're fighting for attention. I'm not going to gain your attention by showing you a thing you've already seen, So it's important to try to standardize that process in terms of business, because if I want to pump out like, let's say this past New Year's, we probably had 17 different shoots in one day. That's insane, So I want to make it as standard as possible to make sure that these videos are coming out great. But Matt, for example, will be really excited. 17 videos got done and everything's good to go. But then Alex and I, who are more on the like artsy side of it, are kind of cringing at the fact of like, do all these videos look the same?
Yeah. Right. I got you. Yeah. No, I mean, I think from me personally, like, I know I've talked to you about it before, but the stuff that you put out, the biggest difference that I always notice is some of the stuff that you do transitionally, where and especially like early on in a clip too. Like, I forget for which one it was for. I think it was for Xandra. But you instantly start the video off with like the outside of the club at Barstool, and you have basically the second floor of the building come up and drop back down like onto the building. And like you said, adding the other things that people might not think about too, where you're adding in different sound design elements to the video, where there's music, but then there's impact stuff going in there. That's the stuff where I think of it like as a DJ, that's just like little parts of rhythm or melodies or whatever else that make a song also apply to the creative direction that you're going with a short sizzle reel, where then that like impact noise of the building dropping, and then all of a sudden you're in the club and you have stuff where it's like a drone flying through a bottle sign, and then it goes like through the bottle sign into the bottle girls or something like that. And it's just the transitions, I think, are what really make the difference and make the videos that you guys do stand out versus just like a typical recap where it's just like shot, fade out to whatever else, and it's just their music playing in the background or whatever it's going to be. So, and then you talk about making the color pop and do all that stuff so they all look aesthetically pleasing is, I feel like, where you guys thrive and have been fucking killing it. So
thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. But I'm done hyping you up. So
okay, here we go. So. Now you tear me down. Yeah. What are we doing?
No, but I mean, for Emergent, like you just said, how you want to kind of get away from just being stuck in a nightlife lens. Like, how do you work on expanding that company? Because obviously you said you do stuff for Royal Caribbean, completely different than a nightlife realm.
Right.
But there's so much stuff that you can do creatively, whether it's photo, video, whether it's like brand strategy, stuff that people might not necessarily think that you guys do through a company, but is that something else that you guys try and work on that you can help people with from a social media standpoint of marketing their company or business brand, whatever it's going to be too? Like, what do you guys all want to do for Emergent that's more than just the video and photography?
Yeah, I mean, we are working on being a one-stop shop, basically. Right now, we're not claiming to be any sort of marketing company or anything like that. We're working on our own socials, and part of that is like we're going to be recognized as a nightlife company because that's most of the work that we are doing, and that's what we're continuing to put out. So right now, we just actually had a huge meeting about our marketing plan and our social media plan for the rest of 2025. And a big part of that is diversifying our personal content, right? Yeah. So a big part of that is not only displaying that we are willing to do other things besides nightlife, but also we're willing to invest in anybody who's willing to work with us. You know, I think a big thing that we want to do is definitely start building a marketing team, but build that with the connections of the people that we already know and have them lead a team and offer them the sort of connections that we've been building. And that's always what we're trying to do. You know, with the creatives that we work with, we invested in a lot of younger creatives. I think that's extremely important. But we just want to be able to, we want to hone in on what we're already doing and being able to make sure that we're offering quality videos as much as we can on a consistent basis to every single one of our clients, because it is a lot. You know, we have Barstool, we have Dare at the Hard Rock, we have Olive Groot Hospitality. So these are pretty big names that we take a lot of pride in. But just because we close one deal doesn't necessarily mean that then the quality for like another company should suffer, you know? Yeah. And I think an issue that we run into a lot is a lot of these companies are like, well, we hired you for you, not your team, you know? But the reality is like, well, I mean, you know, I can't survive like that. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm running a business, but I'm doing all the work, I don't have a business. I just have a job. You know, I built myself a job, and that's what I'm doing. My business should be able to survive whether I'm there or not. And the reality is like, burnout is a thing, you know, and burnout's a thing for everybody. So you're only going to be able to rely on me when I'm at my peak. I should be able to have a team that should be able to deliver what I can do as well. And that's just going to be better for the longevity of the company, because if I'm tired or if I'm sick or something, or I have a family emergency, I can still guarantee you'll have an emergent style video by the end of it. And that's like the most crucial thing.
Yeah. Having the trust in all the other people that you work with is huge, because like you said, if you're not there, all of their work should be a reflection of yours or where you guys want it to be quality wise. So that's huge, man.
Yeah.
I know that obviously like that's on the horizon for 2025. Are there any other projects right now coming up that you are specifically like looking forward to? Is there any people that you guys already know on the docket, on the calendar for 2025 that you're going to be shooting that you're excited for?
It's tough because with the way that nightlife is, as you know, everything is so last minute. There's one in the pipeline that's pretty exciting for us, which I I mean, I'll say it. I don't know if we've
Like, I don't know if I can say it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can, but right now, like, that would be really cool. We got reached out to by this guy who's running this event for the beach club in NOLA.
Okay.
And he's setting up this like pretty big weekend for Super Bowl weekend.
Nice.
So we will potentially be shooting Don Toliver, Loud Luxury, and I believe there's one other artist.
Don Toliver the other day.
Yeah, there you go, and how
Nice.
great he is. But yeah, so that's really exciting. Waste management, I heard, is great, so that's really exciting. We have that coming up. And as for the rest of the year, most of these people won't book us until they see us sweating like a week before the event, and they're like, now we'll get them. So, well, we'll see. But that's all for now.
How do you go about balancing your own personal creative mind and then also what the client is looking for in the projects? Like, do you find that you're kind of battling that sometimes where a client might want this shot and you might know, like, hey, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to look good. This isn't going to get engagement, whatever it's going to be. And they don't really want to budge on it. Like, how do you battle that?
It's tough, man. Yeah. It is tough. We definitely, I mean, with anything creative, you're going to have your ebbs and flows of like what people think is the right thing to do or the exciting thing to do. You go into it and you hope that your visions kind of align, but at the end of the day, we are a business, so we're gonna make the client happy. Yeah. I'm not going to name any names here, but there's definitely been some clients that want changes. And I'm like, well, I think the video's objectively way worse now, but if you're happy, then great. And it's difficult, because for those that are solely creative and, do it for the love of the art, which I try to do as much as I can, every opportunity that I can. But at the end of the day, realistically, like, I got to eat, I got to eat and my family's got to eat. So sometimes you do have to make a little bit of that compromise. But you try to make it work. And I think it's also managing expectation. There is a level of, you have to be confident enough of the art and like knowing what to be able to say, hey, like, I understand what you're trying to do here, but I don't think it's going to work the way that it's going to work. Now we can offer the opportunity of being like, we can try it out. I do think it might take away X, Y, and Z more time, or it'll take way more resources, which will cost you X amount, whatever. And you just got to lay it out from the front. And as long as you have that open communication, you don't run into as many issues, but you got to be able to communicate that early on, because then they get the product and then it doesn't look great. And then it's your fault, even though you're like, hey, I told you technically this might not be it. But if you don't communicate that ahead of time, then it's completely on you,
Yeah. I feel like that's got to be one of the harder things in an art and creative field, is when people do want a specific direction and you might think it ends up looking like shit.
Right.
It's still your work that's being put out. So then it's your name that's behind that product now. So it's hard to want to put it out if this client is kind of forcing you to put out a product that you don't necessarily view as good. Mm-hmm. And then that goes onto your portfolio, where then people are like, oh, like, they might look at it and be like, oh, I didn't like that either. And not know that, like, hey, that was the client's direction. That wasn't necessarily me. So that's got to be a tough one that I feel like I would struggle with a lot. And I mean, as a DJ, same kind of shit, where there's a lot of times where different people are like, hey, play this, play this, play this. And you're like, that shit isn't going to work. Like,
and how often can you fight that too? Like, how does that work?
I mean, luckily I don't get it at Barstool at all, but I've definitely had it in the past. I mean, I feel like for the most part, if I'm getting a request for songs, whether it's Ego, whether it's Chase, whoever else, they have pretty good taste in music. Mm-hmm. They know what works in the club too. So if Chase like needs something for a bottle coming out, he'll text me and be like, hey, we got this bottle coming out, play this. Ego will be like, hey, so-and-so is here, or she just wants to hear a song. And they're smart enough to know to not ask for a song that is going to fucking kill the room, which is nice. But I've definitely worked in spots prior that have an owner that knows nothing about music and nothing about, they could be 50, 60 years old while all of their clientele is 21-year-olds, and they think that they know exactly what they're talking about and what they want and what's going to work, and it's the complete opposite of what should actually be going on. So that's hard, because then you're just like, I don't want to play this. But there's been times where I've been DJing and you're behind the booth and you're playing shit because you're being forced to play it by ownership and management, and you just know looking out of the crowd that everyone fucking hates the music that you're playing, and it makes you seem like the bad DJ.
Yeah.
When really you're just being handcuffed by ownership, management, and whatever else.
So why does that happen? Like, why do they demand certain songs? Like, they're just like, I like this song, or how does that work?
There's some people that just like venues that they want a specific style, or there's undertones of whatever else it could be, whether it's like race related, whether it's anything where they're just like, oh, we don't want any hip hop here. And it's like, everyone wants to hear hip hop. Like, I don't care if it's a fucking white lady from the suburbs or whoever else. Like,
Hell yeah.
you can play hip hop. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing to be played. But yeah, and then or they just think that they have the taste that they know what their clientele is going to want, and it's completely just far left from what anybody else wants. So
Yeah.
it's hard. Every DJ has been through it. Every DJ is still going to deal with it, and it's just, you just kind of try and work in a couple songs and get the fuck out of it.
Yeah. let the DJs DJ, man.
Yeah.
Let the DJs DJ.
It's hard,
Yeah.
man. But
Fair.
yeah, we're going to get into some of like your creative direction. We've talked a little bit about it already. Main thing I need to know is like, just be honest here. I mean, is Caroline really the brains behind all your creative work?
I hate you so much. She's gonna love that question. Caroline is an absolute G. You
Yes.
know, Caroline was honestly. I want to preface it because she is a really big part of why we are where we are today.
Yeah.
So funny enough, I don't know if you actually knew this, but so Kasis went to FSU.
FSU with you,
Right.
yeah.
So at one of the venues that Matt would always shoot at, Kasis would DJ there all the time. So
We're at a recess or what?
at recess, yeah.
Yeah.
So Matt had already formulated a relationship with Kasis. So they were friends already. So this kind of goes back into the whole Matt being well connected and everything. So he had gotten to meet Caroline a couple times through that. And she had told him multiple times, like, hey, like whenever you graduate, reach out to me. You know, we're always looking for content and all that other stuff. And then we had a mutual friend, a couple mutual friends that were working at this hospitality company out in Miami called Trio. So shout out Taha. But they had an event that they were hosting at Live, and they did a video for, Alex is going to kill me because I always mess this up. I don't know if it was Disco Lines or Alan Walker. It was one of those, but they did a video for them, and I guess Caroline saw it, really liked it, and she was one of those, like, she really gave us like kind of our first shot, and to be able to freshly graduate and be shooting at Live, and then that be like a consistent thing is almost unheard of. You know, we're really young. You know, Alex is 25, Matt and I are both 24. You know, so we're both like, we're all really young guys. So to be able to do that at such an early point in our lives is insane, and it really propelled us forward because through that and being able to associate with a name like Groot Hospitality, Dave Grutman, and all these other people, it just gave us that legitimacy very quickly. And frankly, looking back at some of the content that we did then, where we are now, I'm like, they should not have trusted us with that shit at all, you know? But we're so grateful for it. But Caroline has really seen that creative build from us for sure. Yeah. And she's someone that if we pitch an idea to, she'll kind of like take the blow and she'll face Dave Grutman and be like, hey, this is our idea, you know, that way if he hates it and we don't have to hear that and hurt our feelings, you know, so she could be like, hey, this isn't working, this is working. We're definitely a good team, I would say. I think I work with her a little bit more directly, more than Matt and Alex when it comes to sort of the creative aspect. Alex definitely tag teams in with a lot. I mean, we all do mostly, but it definitely comes down to us sitting down and being able to have those conversations, and she has just been super supportive, and that I think that's been great for us to not get sort of that burnout, because when we're able to have that creative freedom, it's exciting, you know, because it reminds us of why we started doing this in the first place, which is the love for the art.
Yeah.
So,
versus being kind of like micromanaged and stuff all the time. So
yeah.
That's kind of one of the things that I was going to ask before. When you're out here shooting at a lot of these major clubs and going from a place like Live, that's a legendary spot in Miami, obviously big DJs are coming through there all the time.
Right.
Going into Barstool, we're bringing in a lot of people. How is it working with those artists and their teams and what they want you to shoot for them and then also balancing that with what like the venue wants, and then your own personal creativity as well. Because I feel like a lot of these artists might want a specific thing shot or have like personal requests of what they want you to do, or what all goes into that behind the scenes.
It's honestly not as hard as you would think in that regard. Obviously, working with certain teams, there's certain shots you may want to get. And it's more just a matter of, will I be able to get this specific shot or not? Because, I mean, you know, every artist has their own personality. And sometimes because the artist is so massive, sometimes the team kind of takes on a personality of their own, which isn't necessarily reflective of the artist themselves. So sometimes, you know, you have the typical sort of like egocentric manager that feels they're as big as the artist, you know, and they're like, don't talk to them. And honestly, don't talk to me either, you know, and you're like, okay, Sarah or whatever, you know, like whoever you are. You know, so it's like it's just, it makes it difficult sometimes, but I think we've honestly just been really lucky of, these venues seem to really trust us. And they seem to really like what we have going on. And frankly, a lot of these companies want to see more creativity from us. There is a back and forth just sometimes in terms of like accessibility and whatnot. Like I've recently been saying that I feel like I'm in a toxic relationship with all my clients, because when we did that Art Basel video, you know, we really ran that Lil Wayne clip kind of into the ground. We posted that like a million and one times. Everyone has seen it. So we really rode that wave, but, the other venues started reaching out to us and they're like, where's our cool idea? Where's, you know, so when they start seeing the success of that, they're like, hey, you know, like we got to let these guys fly. You know, you know, that scene in like, and the other guys, I'm a peacock. You got to let me fly. And now they're letting us fly, you know? So that's the exciting part. But,
I think it's like the same as what you were just saying about DJs, where you're like, yo, let them DJ. Like I've said it to you before, like prior to the show of like us talking to Twin Stick, when we're talking to Casey and you're like, yo, is there anything like specifically that you want? He's like, no, not really. And I'm just like, bro, just let him shoot. You're going to fucking love it. Like it's all going to be good. And he's like, all right, cool. Like we're good then.
Which was awesome, by the way. I really appreciate that.
But yeah, I mean, that's just the credibility that you built from everything that you put out, and it's awesome. So
thank you.
Do you feel pressure when you're shooting some of these huge artists where you're like, fuck, I have to get this shot of this drop or whatever it's going to be, or when Lil Wayne is playing this song, I have to get this shot? Is there a lot more pressure shooting those shows than if you're shooting me on a Friday night at Barstool?
Okay, well, don't downplay yourself like that. But oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, there's so much pressure sometimes.
Yeah.
You try to make it as standard as possible. You know, like you try to streamline it as much as you can. You know, most of these places are gonna want the pretty girls, you know, they're going to want to show the space. They're going to want the CO2, the confetti. So you try to get those things. But like I said, it really comes down to how much creativity you want to put on it, how much of your own mark you want to put on it. So like, for example, the Art Basel thing, none of the signings were guaranteed, you know, and it was this set lineup. And if you don't get one of the artists, it kind of ruins the whole, it ruins the whole thing. So for example, the Lil Wayne clip that, like I said, we've talked about over and over again, was especially scary because most of the artists, we got their signing right before they were going to get on stage. It wasn't the ideal circumstances. Like I've gotten some hate comments on some of the signs being like, this looks like shit. And I'm like, appreciate it, you know, but you don't have a lot of control, as much control as you would want, you know, like on the lighting, on the scenario, on what's going on. So you're like rushing, shoving in between people. Everyone's trying to take pictures with the artist. And you're this guy with this weird looking contraption on your camera. And with Lil Wayne being as big as he is, for example, the venue didn't want to push it on him to do this signing thing, you know, because I think the biggest issue that we run into, and especially being young, is that we look like kids to some of these people, you know? And it's like, you know, I might be young, but I still run a business, you know, and I do it, I think, relatively well. And I'm learning, sure. But like, I'm trying to do this for the sake of your venue. You know, and it's not like they're like trying to shut me down or anything, but it's like the artist takes priority, you know, like I'm not obviously bigger than the artist or whatever, but like I have to be in this sort of like synchronicity with the artist to be able to get this moment. And Wayne, because they just want to make sure he's having a good time. They were inducting him into the Live on Sunday Hall of Fame. It was a really big night. There was a lot of attention on him.
Yeah.
They didn't want to push it. So we didn't get his signature until he was about to step into his Sprinter van to leave. So at that point, we're like, oh, we're cooked, like we're done. So I was sitting there with Caroline with this camera, just waiting and like staring at Wayne from a distance. And the whole team is kind of like, what the hell does this guy want, And then finally, it was last second, it all came together. So for things like that, like, it is a lot of pressure, but it just makes the payoff so much more worth it, especially for someone like Wayne, that like that's the first artist that got me into hip hop. And that's someone that I really am excited about. Like I've filmed a lot of artists, a lot of DJs, huge, massive DJs, but being able to film Wayne was something that I'm just like never going to forget. Never.
That's the one that you can fanboy over.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. For sure. I mean, awesome. You play it cool, I'm like, yeah, preach, thanks, whatever. Yeah. Again, it's Lil Wayne. It's no biggie, but then you sit there and you're like, oh my God, like that was like Lollipop, dude, that was a milli. Are you kidding me? So it's all that excitement.
Still gets played all the time, man.
Oh yeah.
Years and years and years later.
Yeah.
So where you're at now, like, how do you guys go about continually improving? Because I feel like with social media, like we talked about earlier, everything is always progressing so quickly, where there's going to be new apps or new trends or whatever else it's going to be. And then obviously you need to stay on top of that. So do you kind of feel like you're just like always working? Like even if you're just at home on social media, are you able to kind of turn your brain off from work, or are you always kind of looking at stuff like, ooh, shit, this would be cool. Ooh, this is going to give me an idea, or being inspired by other venues and other creatives?
Yeah, no, I definitely don't shut my brain off. I wish I want to be better about it.
It's hard.
It's so hard, dude. Yeah. It's so hard. But like, I geek out about this sort of thing. Like I genuinely love cameras. Like when new cameras drop and all the specs are out, like I love reading up on them. What can this camera do? What's different,
Okay.
But I love this question because I think what Emergent is doing well, and I want us to continue to do well, that is a little bit different from most other companies, is, well, first and foremost, we're putting a price on something that isn't necessarily tangible, Like we offer a service, but how do you determine how, and financially how good a video is? You know what I'm saying? Like, is this an $800 video, a $1,500 video, a $15,000 video? You see what I'm saying? So it makes it quite difficult. And with most companies, right, it's like, I can't say someone could be a great videographer, an editor, but how do I determine if they're consistent? Like if a salesperson has a metric, you can say they've sold X amount of units in Y amount of time and made Z amount of dollars, right? I can't do that with video. But with a lot of jobs, people require years of experience and whatnot. And, you have to be at least like 27 to like be able to have the years of experience that you need to get to a certain point. And yeah, like with video, sure, I need you to have like a decent understanding, but the reality is, who runs social media? It's the youth. The youth is the ones who are setting the trends, who determine what's popping and like what's going to go viral, so why shut them out? Like I think that what we do well is we don't care if you're a young guy, we care if you're not 21 and you can't get into the venue. So we won't take you into the venue. But other than that, it's like a lot of these kids are much more familiar with tech than I am. And frankly, as much as I consider myself young, younger kids than me think I'm old as fuck, and they're more in tune with AI and the apps that are coming out and whatever, because they have the time and the freedom to do that. So instead of fighting that, it's a whole generation we can learn from, So a lot of the kids that we have that are extremely talented are younger than I am. So we try to merge with those people and mend that gap, because the reality is like, that's why we don't gatekeep, is because the reality is like, if I know something and I don't know, Bobby from down the street wants to know how I do it, if that kid really wants to learn how to do what I do, he's going to learn how to do it whether I help him or not.
Yeah.
So why not help him? Because then I can learn something that he knows that I didn't know, and we can help each other grow in that process. Because at the end of the day, like it's about the art that's being made and what's coming as a result of it, and that's much more important to me. And you build that relationship, you shut that kid out, and then now that kid's a stud years later and you want to work with him, he's going to remember that time that you didn't fucking help him. And now you want to be besties? Like, no, dude, get out of here. Get out of here. So I think that's how we try to stay on top of it, is recognizing that we don't know it all. And even with years and years of experience, there's going to be someone out there that knows how to do it better than you and faster than you. And you have to be okay with that, because if you think you know it all, you're going to be stuck in your own ways and you're going to be outdated so fast, especially in the world that we're in, which is social media. Everything is changing. Tech is forever changing. There's people who are making insane videos on their iPhone, on the little Osmo Pockets that are these little like stabilizer cameras that are better than like your eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy shit. But if you know how to use it and you're making dope shit, then I mean, that's what it is. It's the dope shit that comes out of it, and you got to appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I know you were talking about like how a salesperson can have metrics, and it's hard to kind of quantify like the value that a video can have, and how to get a designated dollar amount for us to record this video for you. Do you find that with the day and age that we are in like social media, that the views and whatever else that you're going to get, like if you're showing them your Instagram views from this video, or the average that you guys are getting from videos at Live or at Barstool or wherever else, do those kind of metrics help when you are trying to quantify that price point for your work? Or is that not really like the metric that would kind of translate in the same way that like a salesperson would?
Wow. Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think it's a push and pull. I think there's a give and take here in the way that you can make an insane recap, but social media is a game. There's an algorithm, right? And if you don't know how to function within that algorithm, then great work gets lost, you know? So, you know, who's to say that like if you could have made an insane video that could have gone with so much money behind it. You had a whole team, you had a colorist, a sound designer, a cinematographer, an insane editor, and then the video only gets like, I don't know, 2,000 views, you know? But that video is technically worth like 30K or something like that, you know? So it helps when you understand that algorithm to be able to push forth like, hey, not only can we make cool videos, but we know what's going to do well and how to make it do well. And that's sort of a service that you then sell on top of that. But that's why you have these social media managers and these people who are very in touch with social media, because they know what the algorithm is looking for, you know? So you try to use that to boost yourself as an optimal hire, you know, in terms of like Emergent, for example. But it can't be really used to signify how much the video is actually worth. But you have to keep that in mind with like your marketing or how you're proposing the video, because at the end of the day, everyone wants their ROI, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's got to be one of the harder things. I never really had thought about it where in your field there is really no designated like salary and price point. It's just kind of the work is worth what we justify it's being worth from how you guys do it and the quality that's put out, and it's kind of just call it what you want, and then if they agree, they'll do it. So
and you have to prove it every time, because you hear it, you know, like they're like, oh, you're charging me $5,000 for this video, but you know my nephew Steven will do it for like $400,
and it'll be a lot worse.
And they'll learn the hard way, but it happens. You know what I'm saying? It's and sometimes that's the discrepancy that you have, is that sometimes the client just doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And that happens, and you just got to be okay with walking away sometimes, or you got to be a hell of a fucking salesman and be like, yeah, sure, Steven can do that, but this is what we've done. These are the people that we've worked with, and we've proven it time and time again, and we can prove it to you too.
It's funny how much similarities there are with that and with DJing, because that's the same shit that happens where they're like, oh, well, this DJ took $100, and you're like, well, that's gonna fucking suck,
right?
So, and it just goes to show right away, and then they're like, oh, this went wrong while they were playing. We're like, try to tell you, man. That's why this is worth what it's worth. So
and that's on you.
Who are some of your favorite creatives? Do you have people that you like to follow? You like to look at their work when you're doom scrolling. You're like, let me go check this person out. I really like the shit that they're putting out.
There's just so many creatives out there. Honestly, I find myself inspired by so many people. I think when I was first starting, for sure. I mean. To those who like really know about videos and stuff like that, it might be like low hanging fruit, but Daniel Schiffer is a Canadian YouTuber who he got very famous with like his sound design, and at home he makes a lot of videos. He does a lot of product videography. He's insane. Casey Neistat was a video. He's like a filmmaker, but he's also a YouTuber who got very famous with his like kind of rugged storytelling, and he's a very DIY guy where he just kind of like vlogs everything about his own life in New York and everything, and the way that he tells his stories through the use of cameras. And he became very famous because like the way that he treats his like cameras and stuff like that was very difficult for me to watch, but was also inspiring because he's not careful. Like, cameras are expensive.
You get anxiety watching it.
Oh my God. He's like tossing it across the room, or he's like, tossing a GoPro. He falls, eats it. The camera breaks. He has another one. And it's like, how are you doing that? And like, I come from the home of a single mother, like we like, it was to the point where like I lived at, it was like a 2-2 with my mom, my grandma, my sister, and me. And we'd have to like all sleep on a bed together, and then I'm watching this guy who's just tearing through cameras, and I'm like, I can't do that.
Fucking pulling your hair out watching it.
Right. Yeah. But then, like an interesting thought process that he kind of had was that the minute that I treat my camera as a luxury, I forget that it's really a tool. Okay. And he's right, is that it's true. It is a tool, because if I'm not willing to like push the boundaries of my camera, then I'm also limiting my storytelling, which is what I try to incorporate into the nightlife stuff, because even though a lot of the video is these like, big booty Latinas in one part, it's like, well, there's aspects of the storytelling that we can utilize, like how we flow through this video. And now I'm just very grateful to say that a lot of these creatives that I see that are inspiring are like personal friends, like Ashton Bosse, who he shot one of the first times we shot at Barstool, actually, before I could even make it out here. Bosse, he's extremely talented. Olive Respective Collective, they're a company based out of New York. They do all the content for Rolling Loud, and they have like pretty much always supported us and kind of taken us under their wing. John Cotter is an insane photographer. Ricky is younger guy who's shot for us. Him and his girlfriend used to shoot for us all the time, and they're a power couple. We just have so many people that are around us that are really insane, but that are in their own lane. Like, we have people on our team too as well, but in terms of like creatives, when I was like kind of trying to find my own style that I still feel like I am, those are definitely people that I've looked out for that I just think are great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I figured there would be a lot, and the majority of them I have never heard of, so I'm gonna have to go do some research. Yeah.
Oh, and I do want to mention Eye Candy. Eye Candy is an Instagram account that is known for just highlighting different creators from everywhere with like insane visual effects. And I've been following them for years. And specifically for that Wayne clip, a guy had commented on the clip and was just commented 3 check marks, and it was getting a lot of love. So I didn't have time to like really sift through everyone's account, but this creator named Jacoby, I like clicked his account and I was like, oh, this stuff is really cool. But I didn't look at his bio or anything, and it turns out that he was the founder of Eye Candy. And then he like featured the clip and everything. And so I just want to give a shout out to him as well too, because he genuinely seems to love the art, and he doesn't care if you have a massive I really don't have a massive following or anything like that, but he just loved it so much that he was willing to like showcase it. And I think there's something to be said about that, who people really just support for the sake of supporting the art.
Trying to put on all these other people and just, put them on a platform. It's like a podcast or something. Out of all like the nightclub venues, who do you think has the best social media content out right now? Aside from your
like the ones I work with?
No, aside from your shit, just like what you see. What you see, well, I mean, if you want to do,
no, you're gonna get me in trouble.
Yeah. I'm like, it's gonna be your own work.
No.
They're gonna be like, you're favoring somebody. But no, I would say like from all the social media content that you see from other nightclubs around the U.S., around the world, who do you look at and you're like, damn, like their social media content is really good?
I mean, dude, like Vegas is just always producing crazy stuff. I actually met this guy recently who works with this company called Curza as well. That's insane. Ty Bark, I think I'm pronouncing his name properly. He does edits for like Omnia, for example, and you see some of the content that they've done with like Marshmello, and all the Vegas venues, I would say, do such an incredible job. They tap more into the digital animation world, like the graphics world and digital renderings and stuff like that, which we want to dive into more, but it is expensive. And being able to find venues that are willing to do that is kind of hard. Like Live has done it. Barstool's doing it right now, but they try to be very selective about when they do it because it's another art form within itself. So we're working on having those people to be on our team more consistently, so we can offer that at, like, in-house. But, you know, Media Monsters is another company that Brian, he's like a great guy who's always been welcoming of me. He does great stuff for like 11 as well. So I would definitely say Vegas does great stuff. 11 does really great stuff. Shout out Media Monsters. But yeah, Vegas is one we keep our eye on to try to keep competing with, for sure.
Is that a goal to obtain a client out there so that we guys can go and be shooting out in Vegas?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think to do what we're doing, it's difficult because I think there's a lot of people who do what we do independently, and a lot of these venues don't want to hire you because of that burnout that we were talking about. Yeah. You know, to be able to offer that on a consistent basis is quite hard. So we want to become almost kind of like a school to a degree, where even though these people don't necessarily work for us full time, because we want to give the creatives the freedom to still work with whoever they want to work with, and we don't necessarily want to tie people down unless they're like absolutely all for it. We really want to hone in on Miami. Like, Miami is something that we do love, and frankly, the story about how we got to Barstool is pretty random and pretty crazy. But like, I mean, we'll never shut down the opportunity. If it arises, I'm going to say when it arises. When it arises, that's something we're going to 100% be down for. Yeah. But it's not something that we're actively shooting for, I would say.
Yeah. You're talking about burnout. This is a perfect little segue. I don't know if you knew this was coming up next, but with you traveling in and out here, we talked about it, where you're going Miami, Nashville, places in Texas, kind of all over. How do you find time to relax? Because I feel like every time I see you, you're either shooting or you're like at home editing, or you're just sitting in the office or the green room editing. Like, you're going flight, hotel, club, back to the hotel, straight to editing, like in the computer. Do you ever just get time to relax, or how do you manage that so that way you're not getting burnt out from doing something that you love?
So the question being, when do I rest? I guess is I don't. I really don't. And I get yelled at a lot by friends, by loved ones, you know, by past relationships. You know, they're like, oh, you know, you need to make more time for us, and I'm like, I can't, you know. But it's hard. It's really hard. I think the mentality is like, you know, these are the years to do it and to grind while I still have the energy. So that way I can be set up to do it. I mean, frankly, I don't want to spend the rest of my life shooting at a nightclub till like 4 a.m. I mean, especially with Miami hours, like, you know how insane that is. It's unreal how people do that every single weekend. And it gets exhausting. Right now I'm relying on my youthful energy and spirit to keep me going.
Keep it strong.
Yeah, to keep strong. But it's hard. I try to rest when I can. I think we try to balance each other out when we have that opportunity. So like if we see that, you know, Matt is like really stressed out, or Alex, or he's like, yo, I just need a minute. We try to support each other on that, but it's something that feels like it can't be accomplished until we have a well-oiled machine where we know, okay, if a client hits us up, it'll run through this person, it gets put on our Monday, and then we know this person will shoot, edit, whatever. Until then, it's kind of hard to rest. But I think the beauty of that, to a degree, obviously rest, like sleep is so crucial, and my body has genuinely felt it already, which is not great. You know, like I, for the longest time, was the king of like going to bed at 4 a.m., waking up at like 9 a.m. and then keep going. And especially we had Art Basel and Rolling Loud weekend back to back. And I live in Fort Lauderdale. So all these events were in Miami. I would finish shooting at Live at like 4 a.m, 5 a.m. I'd get home at 6 a.m, and then I'd have to upload or edit some clips. I'd be done by 7 a.m, and then I had to be at Rolling Loud or my Art Basel event by 10. You know, so it's not sustainable. That's not a flex by any means at all. You know, it was definitely like taking a toll on me. But when you get those exciting clips, the Lil Wayne clips, you know, or the opportunity to try something different, it makes it worth it for sure. You know, like those glimpses of being able to try something creative that strays away from the norm or the monotony of like filming a nightclub, it reignites that passion. So we almost find a reason within ourselves and what we're doing to not get burnt out, because when we have that new idea and we have something to strive for, rather than, oh, we're just filming this club again, that's going to be the thing that I feel like hypes us up again, and it just pushes the ball rolling a little bit more.
Yeah. Just gives you that energy to get over the top and beat it a little bit. So
exactly.
That's awesome. That's a good answer. I mean, I feel like so many people either just don't talk about it or they just kind of push it away, but it's something that a lot of people deal with, is getting burnt out and just overexerting themselves to whatever career that they're doing. So it definitely is important to try and find some time to relax. And I know it's probably hard for you, just like it is for me. So it's just a constant go, go, go. So hopefully you get some time to settle down.
We'll get there. Yeah. But I mean, like, what about you, for example?
I mean, me, like right now, I've been crazy busy because like I'm back in school. So I'm a full-time student at fucking 33.
Wait, what are you doing? I didn't know that.
I'm in school at Belmont for music production and music business. So I have that, and then like trying to do the podcast, my mix show, doing all the DJing that I'm doing too. And then just also trying to find time for Luna, for Maddie, and just like free time to do stuff too. It's a lot to try and balance. And I feel, I mean, like you said, where you're trying to find balance, and people, whether it's your loved ones or whoever else, are like, yo, you got to chill for a little bit. But I love DJing. So it's like, I'm the same thing where I'm like, I'll never say no. Like if they're like, yo, can you come DJ? I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like I just want to go and do it. So it's hard to kind of shut it down and take a minute for yourself to relax. So, but maybe do a vacation or something like that sometime soon. Get somewhere warm, since it's fucking snowing in Nashville today. So
everyone's so like, oh, it's snowing. And I'm like, this Florida boy is like so geeked.
Like, hell yeah.
I'm like, it's been, because I lived in New York for 9 years. So I got to experience snow, but it's been a minute. So right now I'm just seeing like the equivalent of like a pre-cum of snow like on the ground right now, but it's still like, oh shit, you know, like I haven't seen it in a minute. So it's cool.
I'm from Wisconsin, so it's like
nothing new.
I got out of it and I'm like, oh, this is nothing. Like, people were like, last year it snowed like an inch and they shut down the fucking city. I'm like, you guys are such pussies. Like, I'm like, get your fucking car out and go drive. But yeah, it's wild though.
Yeah.
So, only a couple more things, man. I don't know if you have a couple picked out, but music-centered show, obviously, a lot of the time. Myself being a DJ, we have a lot of different creatives, whether service industry, different artists, singers, DJs, producers, all that kind of stuff coming on the show. Give me your top 3 songs right now. It could be anything that you're listening to in the car, at the gym, the song that you're loving to hear in the club right now. What are your top 3?
Got you. So,
oh, you already had it prepped.
I came prepared. I know my first one for sure is we actually talked about it the other night, was Die For Me by Gene Dawson and Lil Yachty. That song for me is just it's have you heard the actual song? Because I know you mentioned you knew Gene Dawson, but that for me, like I think it's such a genre bending sort of song, you know, where it's like you have that hip hop style and Lil Yachty's extremely talented. And for those people who like don't really know about his discography and his history, he's very much more influential than people may think over his song. Like, you know, the song One Night that kind of blew him up. I mean, that song is, feel how you want to feel about that song, but he's come a long way. So I love that, but I do love a lot of R&B and soul as well. But as for Die For Me, my boy Samuel Atkinson put me on, so I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah, Gene Dawson came up on mine because he was just like, I want to say it just popped up on like the new music on Apple, and I was just like scrolling through one Friday, wanting to check out some new shit, just kind of always diving and digging for music, and he was one of the people that popped up for like a new album. I started listening to it, and I was like, this fucking sounds good.
He had a concert here not that long ago.
Oh, that might have been also why I heard of him.
That's probably why. It was November 15th. I know because it was right after my birthday, and I wanted to stay for it.
Yeah.
And I was in town, and I ended up not going, which I hate that I didn't go. But he's very interesting.
Yeah.
The visuals they released for that too was really cool. They did this like little promo where it's like he's like in a thunderstorm, but it's in a studio, and they have this like light that's like almost like hugging him. Super cool visual.
I love that you look at it, all like that kind of stuff too.
I love
like,
that shit,
more
dude.
than just the music. You're like, all right, how else are we putting this out? Like, what's the creative direction that we're going when we release the song? Like, all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's what's so important. And like, not to veer off topic, because I still have the other 2 songs, but like one of the things they teach us and why I'm especially appreciating DJ and everything a lot more is like one of the first things I was taught by Omar Delgado when we were learning about like all this like journalism stuff and whatnot was, one is we're playing a psychology game always, which it kind of sucks sometimes because you want to let the art just like speak for itself. But when we're doing recaps, like we don't want to keep a video on for longer than a clip longer than 3 seconds unless it's really good. But you want to keep like people intrigued because of, attention spans and whatnot and whatever. But a viewer is going to forgive shitty video sooner than they forgive shitty audio. So like that's very important. That's why even though as like videographers or cinematographers or whatever you may be, it's so important to make sure that your audio is up to par too, because like, if I show you a clip and then I show you a very low quality VHS clip, you're like, oh, maybe that's like a choice or whatever, but it's visually telling you something. But if let's say I'm recording from this like high tech, what mic is this? Like this Shure mic, then compared to like the mic of like, I don't know, a Nokia, and then I'm speaking through it and it sounds all muffled. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a stark difference. So that's why I think when you hear those DJs that can make such like great transitions and have like a real good like play on words whenever they might be DJing, that's so like important. And so I try to look at all these aspects, because it's all important. And art is art to me. I love all things art,
Yeah, love it.
Right now on my rotation is Night Off by Isaiah Falls and Sasha Keeble. Isaiah Falls, I caught a glimpse of him performing when I was shooting Rolling Loud, but I didn't get to really watch him. So he's someone that I'm trying to dig into a little bit more. Pause. And
that's the clip right there.
Nah.
That's the clip.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And then another one on my rotation right now is Keep Steady by So Camo. I hope I'm saying that properly, but yeah,
I'm gonna start 2025. If you guys are looking, when the guests come on here, we're gonna get their top songs and start up the platform playlist so you guys can find it on Spotify, on Apple. Just kind of picking people's brains when they're on the show and getting those songs and adding them to it, so that way people can go and check out some new music, new artists that they might not have been listening to, and get put onto some new shit. So.
That's so sick. Perfect. I love that.
Yeah, so I'll add those in there too and get it started, get it going. So
great.
Last thing we got to do, man, something we do every episode, you got to put somebody on a platform. So this can be somebody that you work with, somebody that you love their work, your favorite brand, a favorite restaurant, can be whatever. Just something that we got to check out so the viewers and listeners can go shine a little bit of spotlight on them. They can go check them out and show them some love.
For sure. The first one that I guess the main one that comes to mind is a buddy of mine, Nick Wutcher. He owns a brand called Yifno, which stands for Yo, It's Fucking Nice Out. He has always been super supportive of me and everything that I got going on, and his own clothing brand, and he's been doing it since college, but he's always pushing his creative envelope, and he's always like, he is the person who is like, when we do videos and stuff like that, instead of just being like, you're the camera guy, do what you need to do, he likes to learn and he likes to figure out why these things happen, and he tries to push himself as much as he can, which to me is extremely admirable. So he's someone that for sure is always just grinding and going for it. So I always got to show him love because he always shows us love. And then I also just want to take the second to shout a couple people out, if that's okay.
Go ahead, man.
But
that's
definitely,
what it's here for.
I want to give a shout out to like my family. I think is huge. Coming from being first generation to tell like your mom that you're running your own business is like terrifying because they just want you to be like a lawyer or a doctor. So that's extremely massive. My mom, my grandma, my sister. Those are I do it for them. So that's huge. Matt and Alex for. We all put up with each other in different ways. I always say it's like we're all dating, because we talk to each other every day. We deal with each other's personalities. That's huge. Everyone who's trusted us and who's really taken the risk on us, like Caroline, all of Groot Hospitality, Royal Caribbean, Dare, everyone over there. with, Ashley, Damaris, Joe. Iga is a really big one too. That's not one that I got to mention earlier, but she found us on social media at the beginning of the year, and she just was honestly just being supportive. Like, she didn't even ask us for work. She just saw our work and was like, hey, you guys do great stuff. And it was like 3 months after her initial like DM to my account that she was like, I'd love for you guys to come out here. And she really took a risk on us. So that's been great. And, we're here now because of that. And the Florida Realtors Association has had our back. So we're just grateful for all those people. Nick Wutcher. I'm definitely going to regret it later because I know now that I started naming people, I'm going to forget somebody. Yeah. I'm going to forget somebody and I hate it. So to that person I forgot, you specifically, I'm going to send this to like multiple people. I remember you, So yeah, man. And to you for having me on here and giving me a platform to talk about myself. That's always my favorite.
I love it, man. I love picking people's brains from a different creative field. I mean, all the videography and photography stuff is something that I don't know if I've talked to you about it, but my brother does it. My stepmom did it. My mom did it. They're all photographers, but my brother shoots music festivals, concerts, sporting events all the time. I'm waiting for him to come down to Nashville and record an episode because his story of how he got into it is fucking wild. Oh, yeah. So Dan, eventually you're fucking coming and recording. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to get everyone else's stories out here. This is something that I think is very, very entertaining and intriguing to a lot of people because you don't really see how much work goes into it. And there's a lot of stuff that you see on social media right now where being that creator behind the scenes is fucking huge. And you guys have been killing it, so you deserve your flowers.
Thank you, man.
Happy to have you come over here, take the time to sit down. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Yeah. So thank you. If there's anything else you got to get out, man, let's get it out.
No, man, just excited, know. I think maybe just a message. Yeah. And my message is because it came up again because of this Wayne clip. I'm so sorry. But people are like, oh, I've seen this before. I've done whatever. I think my most important like note for anybody and anything is we need to play more. Just play, and I think that's so important. Like. I mentioned to you, like, acting was my first thing. And Matthew Corzine, he is actually my acting coach out in Miami. And we talk about that a lot, is that in acting, they teach us this a lot. And I feel like we forget that in every other realm of art, is that it's so easy to get, just to want to be great and to want to be perfect. And have you read The Creative Act by Rick Rubin? Great book. I know I sound like kind of like a stereotypical douchebag talking about that book because like it's one of those books that everyone's read, and it's like I read and it's like, well, no, you read the book that everyone's reading, but yeah, it's just talking about how like we're meant to be vessels, as like stereotypical as that sounds, but we are, and creativity is not just about doing the right thing. There's a fascinating interview that iTunes did with Pharrell where he talks about how he did a song as a sarcastic response as to like always being in a good mood, and like he was like, that's ridiculous, how do you make that? And then he made the song Happy, which blew the fuck up. So to be able to step out of your own self and our own judgment, we're not good enough to judge our own work, because if we were at the peak of what we were doing, then we would be at the peak of it. Like we're not good enough to judge our work because we're all learning and we don't know all of it. So therefore it's important to play because you never know what comes, like what can come of it. And, you learn how to not do things, or you learn how to do 30 different other things as well. So all in all, messages is never take yourself too seriously. Allow yourself to play, because a lot of the art and a lot of the beauty comes in when you least expect it, and when you stop judging yourself, because we're just not as good as we think and we're never as bad as we think.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. Good message to close out on. So again, thank you, man, for taking the time to come and sit down.
Of course.
Viewers, listeners, I'll plug everything in for him. So for his socials, so you guys can go follow Gonzo, follow EMRGENT on their socials, so you guys can see everything that they're working on, all the shit that they're putting out too. If you guys aren't already, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Leave a comment. Any questions that you have for him, hit him up. Put him in the comments, hit him up on his socials, blow him up, make him come and do some work for you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. We're with it.
If you're listening to those mix shows, those DJ mixes come out every Monday. Mixcloud, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. These are out every week. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So make sure that you guys tune in. Tell me who you guys want to see on upcoming shows. And until next week, we will see you guys later. Thank you. Check. Mic check. 1, 2.
Yo, is this thing on or what?